evening and thanks for watching tonight's edition of Northwest Newsweek. As the population in the Northwest continues to age, the need for long-term care beds is steadily increasing. In Sioux Lookout at the Menoyawin Health Center, those beds are already full. Hospital officials say they have the longest wait times in Ontario, which is leading to other issues. Nate Jones reports.
And it's sad. It is,
And it is sad. A $140 million hospital with 20 long-term care beds that are always occupied. Wait times are as long as 4 to 5 years, says the health center CEO, and often those on the waiting list don't get a bed before they die. But there is another alternative.
We've got all these senior people that live in this town. They've lived here all their lives, right from childhood. And when they need long-term care beds after they've even gone out of the home care, after they need long-term care, they're shipping them down to Fort Frances.
The problem with taking patients to Fort Frances or Rainy River comes down to geography. At more than a 4 to 5 hour drive to both communities, patients often miss out on personal visits. But there's an alternative to that.
The answer we get from the LHINs is we do now have video conferencing. And that isn't the same as a personal visit. The members of the communities are very familiar with Sioux Lookout. They're familiar with the hospital situation here.
The Menoyawin Health Center completed an independent study which determined that, in fact, the facility needs 96 long-term care beds. Mitchell says, from a Ministry of Health standpoint, it sees a town of 5,200, which might not warrant such an expansion.
We don't only service the community of Sioux Lookout. We service the 29 remote First Nations communities, and they also use our long-term care beds.
It's estimated that an expansion to the center to accommodate more long-term beds would be about $30 million. Sioux Lookout will be meeting with the local health integration network and various levels of government next week to address their concerns. Nate Jones, TVT News.
The inquest into the death of 27-year-old Bruce Mooney has continued this past week. 2 witnesses took the stand. One of them was an officer with the Ontario Provincial Police who was called to the Nescantica Reserve where Mooney was found. Detective Frank Kaiser was a constable when the incident happened in 2006. He and 4 other OPP officers established a containment area around the home where gunshots were heard. He says they had no idea where Munius was, but they could hear moaning from someone inside who was in pain. After a short while, Kaiser kicked open the door. He found Munius with a gunshot wound in a bed covered in blood. Kaiser remembers the conversation upon finding him.
Again, only what I'd previously said, and one other thing is I remember he was saying I'm gonna die. Like he felt he was going, and I kept saying, help's coming, you're not gonna die, you're gonna be okay. Just trying to not let him get too stressed out about that.
The inquest is being webcast so residents in Nescantica can see it. The testimony continues this coming week at the Ontario Government Building in Thunder Bay. Well, it was 1 year ago Friday that the Ontario Power Authority announced it was suspending the conversion of the Thunder Bay generating station. While there's been some progress, the provincial government still hasn't made an announcement regarding the future of the site. The issue is being raised at the fall conference of the Thunder Bay District Municipal League, and some frustration is building. Matt Scooby has more.
365 days later, and still very little to show for their efforts. The Common Voice Northwest Energy Task Force has submitted another report to Energy Minister Bob Chiarelli. This time it's a response to the Ontario Power Authority's plan for the Dryden area. They mostly agree with the plan, with the glaring exception being the lack of a role for the Thunder Bay generating station. And co-chair Larry Hebert says the frustration is mounting.
We're all volunteers, and they have a lot of paid people that should be doing their homework. And as far as we're concerned, they're not doing their homework. We're doing it for them. We've prepared extensive plans over the last couple of years on different aspects of energy in northwestern Ontario. And every time we meet with them, oh yeah, that's a good point. Well, we're talking to the people. Well, who are you talking to? Well, they're not talking.
The issue is one of many being raised at the fall conference of the Thunder Bay District Municipal League. Hebert brought it up to open the conference, and co-chair Ian Angus is planning a more detailed presentation on Saturday. Jim Vesna is a councillor for O'Connor Township and a member of the Energy Task Force. He's more optimistic about the situation and says the OPA has a much better understanding of the region's energy needs because of the work they've done.
I wouldn't call it frustrating. I mean, obviously there are times you want to turn around and bang your head against the wall. Don't get me wrong about that. But for the most part, it's not frustrating. It's actually, it's a challenge. Okay, and as it's moved forward, for the most part, we have seen some of our goals realized. So I wouldn't be frustrated by it. I'm actually, at the way it's going now, I'm kind of hopeful.
Thunder Bay Atikokan MPP Bill Morrow also addressed delegates today. He touched on many issues, including the energy situation in northwestern Ontario. Morrow thought the current conversion of the Atikokan coal plant was going to be more difficult than the Thunder Bay station, but it's been an ongoing issue.
It hasn't been a year, it's been 10 years. So as I've said, 2 of those 5 plants were in my riding. I've been working on maintaining both of those plants for fully 10 years. We believe we're close to having an announcement on the Thunder Bay Generation Station in the near term. I'm not in a position to say exactly when that will be.
While that's a line the task force has been listening to for the past year, there is a positive with this latest development. Hebert says Minister of Northern Development and Mines Michael Gravel is encouraged by the report. He plans to share it with Minister Chiarelli, and Hebert is hopeful that the long-awaited meeting with the Energy Minister could take place sometime in the next 2 weeks. Matt Scooby, TBT News.
It's good news for economic development in Sioux Lookout. Town Council has recently approved a major expansion of the municipality's airport, while another carrier has been added to the facility. Many call the town the hub of the North, and for good reason. The town's airport sees traffic between the Minoyawin Health Center and 29 northern communities. It's also a midpoint for 17 nursing stations, sportsmen, and various cargo deliveries. Council recently approved a $12.5 million expansion that would expand runways and accommodate a new security check. The airport also expects to see more business join the facility as the volume of traffic increases.
The majority of it's medical or business related to the medical, because when we say we're a hub of the North, yes, we are, but mostly it's a medical hub because of the hospital here, because of the Minoyawin Center. It's very crucial to our economy.
We've also got a new client at our airport, which is Cree West. They're out of Timmins, and they have taken over from Northern Skies. They've taken over the hangar and one of the aircraft, so we're looking forward to having another airline in Sioux Lookout.
Sioux Lookout has completed the design phase of the project and is waiting on federal funding to come in the spring. The project is expected to take a year and a half. Thunder Bay's independent MP is worried a new policy could mean he'll be getting the short end of the Democratic stick. A motion heading to the Procedure and House Affairs in Parliament would allow MPs who are not members of the 3 main parties to introduce amendments at the committee phase, but there's a catch. Bruce Heyer says when those bills eventually make their way into the House of Commons, the Speaker will tell those MPs that they already had their chance to speak to the issue and they won't get an opportunity to debate. Heyer says that the MP's only opportunity, like him, to challenge the government bill.
The only way that anybody can really raise issues in the House is to propose amendments and then debate those amendments. So it was a really good tool to get around the problem of the omnibus budget bills. And Mr. Harper would like to take that away. It's just one more move by Mr. Harper to lessen the role not only of his own backbenchers, but now even the independents. I don't know why he's so worried about it. There's only a few of us.
Heyer says if the new parliamentary rules pass, it will make the House less democratic than it was in 1867. The Conservatives and Liberals are supporting the change, while the NDP has opposed it. It's an excellent example of what can be achieved when the government, industry, and First Nations come together. For over a year now, the Lac Seul First Nation has been managing over 1 million hectares of Crown Forest. The proposal was originally met with some uncertainty, but so far it's been called an unprecedented success story. Nate Jones has more.
About 1 year ago, changes to Ontario's forest tenure and lobbying from government officials allowed Lac Seul First Nation to obtain an enhanced forest license. It enabled them to not only harvest the wood, but to manage a forest twice the size of Prince Edward Island. Obishkekokang Resources is now responsible for overseeing the Lac Seul Forest Management Plan. This translates to jobs and skill building for the band members. There are currently 2 forestry technicians in training and others in administration. But at the local mill, there are over 20 additional jobs for Lac Seul.
So something that we've always wanted was to have a say in managing our lands, and even with youth, we've had youth being trained in our forest. We've had a youth program. It's starting, but I mean, we'll get there.
When the forest management proposal was brought forward, it was met with opposition from some industry and government officials. There were concerns that access to wood fiber would decrease and operating costs would increase. But the corporation has reported just the opposite.
We were able to get the wood moving to mills and signed agreements with forestry companies in the area. And even the Hudson Mill here in town, we managed to work with Buchanan Forest Products to get that mill up and running.
Former Minister of Natural Resources Michael Gravel was an integral part in spurring the agreement. He now sits as Minister of Mines and Northern Development.
We felt if we went down a careful, measured path, and we worked closely in consultation with certainly industry and with municipalities and with First Nations, we could indeed see these opportunities so that Northerners could indeed have a much greater say in terms of the management of our crown forests.
Wood from the forest now travels to local mills, some newly rebounding after the collapse of the industry. Contracts with mills such as Domtar in Dryden and the Buchanan Mill in Hudson are creating economic prosperity. As more band members become trained in the forestry sector, there's talk of new opportunities in the future. Chief Bull would eventually like to see a mill built on reserve land, run by their people. Nate Jones, TBT News.
And stay with us after the break. Officials with KWG Resources are trying to put a patent on a chromite processing method that they consider a game changer. Officials with KWG Resources call it a game changer when it comes to the Ring of Fire. The company has applied for a patent on a new chromite processing method, one that uses natural gas as opposed to the more traditional and more expensive method using electricity. Ryan Bonazzo explains.
KWG Resources, a major player in the Ring of Fire, is trying to patent a new method of turning chromite into ferrochrome, a key ingredient in the production of stainless steel. Their method uses natural gas furnaces to break down the mineral instead of electric ones.
It's a game changer with respect
Company
to
Vice
being
President
able
Mo
to do this in
Levine
Ontario
says with an abundance of cheap natural gas available in Canada, it makes much more economic sense to employ this technique in the reduction of chromite, especially here in Ontario, where energy rates are some of the highest in the country.
The current proposal to produce Ferrochrome in Ontario uses electric arc furnaces, and the problem in Ontario is that electrical rates are very high, so it would be very costly to do that reduction in Ontario.
He says as it stands now, companies would rather build their plants in Quebec or Manitoba, where electricity rates are much lower. But this technique, Levine insists, would be a lot cheaper. Exactly how much money can be saved? That's not yet known for sure. But Levine says it's enough that KWG's plan for the Ring of Fire won't require any type of government subsidy.
Our plan, the combination of the railroad and these gas-fired reduction plants don't involve taxpayer money. They're self-financing, and they are also much more economical. So that means that the economic sustainability of the operations in a Ring of Fire will be much greater.
The patent application process is still in the early stages. There's no word yet on when it might be approved. Ryan Benazzo, TPT News.
Northern Development and Mines Minister Michael Gravel came under fire at Queen's Park Tuesday for his government's handling of the Ring of Fire and other mining issues. NDP critic Mike Mantha pointed to what he calls two major setbacks: the threatened pullout by Cliffs Natural Resource and a recent lawsuit filed against the province by a Sudbury mining company. He says the Liberals have failed to take concrete action to create jobs.
There is no training of the workforce to meet the demand, there is no plan for infrastructure, and there is no electricity rate reductions. For 6 years, this government has talked the talk, but has done nothing on the ground to create the jobs and consult the communities. What will it take for this government to actually develop a plan for Ring of Fire development and job creation in the north?
The member could not be more wrong in almost every aspect of what he just referenced. Certainly in terms of the skills training upgrading, we've provided skills training and upgrade to over 800 people. We've consulted with on a number of bases with First Nation communities, as well as all kinds of other northern municipal leaders as well, and a variety of aspects as well. In terms of the companies, we recognize how important infrastructure is, and that's why we are looking very closely at a variety of options.
An online portal has been revamped to connect newcomers with economic opportunities in northwestern Ontario. Regional municipal representatives gathered at the Thunder Bay Immigration Forum this past week. They unveiled new online tools aimed at showcasing job and economic opportunities in our region. The Northwestern Ontario Immigration Portal was originally launched in 2010. It's been redesigned to improve the focus on connecting newcomers with jobs and business contacts. Some of the new features include a regional career directory, a regional business for sale directory, and an interactive map to explore the region.
We've really looked at what are newcomers wanting to know about when they come to the site and what questions are we getting. So they're immigration-based questions a lot of the time, and they are about how the communities connect, where they're located, what's available in the community, education, employment, housing, and then your proximity to other parts of northwestern Ontario.
The new website is critical. The old website was critical. The new one's even going to have more features that are going to allow us to not only attract the immigrants, but also attract business.
Officials say the birth rate in northwestern Ontario is declining by 20%. In 2030, that will be a negative number. Over the past 10 years, more than 60% of newcomers to our region have stayed, and officials here say that's important to fill jobs and attract businesses. Another historic wreck has been found in Lake Superior near Thunder Bay, one with national significance. Two local divers who say they were just playing around have found what's believed to be the first vessel registered in the Dominion of Canada. The tugboat, named the Mary Ann, was built in 1867 and condemned in 1901, according to the website Graveyard of Ships. Diver Robert Valley and his partner David Shepard found the Mary Ann on the other side of the Welcome Island about a year and a half ago. After a lot of research, it was determined to be the 78-foot-long tugboat. It was originally believed to be sunk in the Graveyard of Ships in deeper water, but it turns out that's not the case. Valley says there are many more vessels to be found.
There's a lot out there that we haven't even found yet. And this one's nice because it's within the range of a recreational diver. So lots of people can get on it and see the way it's built, and it's still in remarkable shape.
Fellow diver and Nipissing Mayor Richard Harvey is working with Valley and Shepard to establish a local chapter of the Ontario Underwater Council. Harvey believes there's a potential for a huge industry.
look at and start doing the historical documentation, looking at all the different wrecks that we've had, shipwrecks in this area, I truly believe that we've got the potential to be one of the top dive tourism destinations in Canada. We've got an advantage in the fact that our waters here are very, very clear in a lot of the different areas.
Harvey feels if shipwrecks were better documented and divers knew where to go, people would come from all over to tour them. He believes that will already be the case with this latest find, given its national significance. Well, the mayor of Dryden hopes to quell concerns regarding the upcoming closure of the Police Communications Center. Mayor Craig Nuttall says he's sad to see jobs go, but tough economic times for the city have initiated budget cuts. Closure of the center is slated for the end of March next year. There are 9 full-time positions and 3 part-time positions that will be lost. The municipality hopes to save about $600,000 annually by contracting out 911 calls to Owen Sound. The mayor of Dryden says the change shouldn't affect the services. It's expected representatives from Owen Sound will be visiting Dryden to get a better understanding of the layout of the city.
They'll know where Flat Rock is, they'll know where Husky is, and then we're going to send some of our constables down to Owen Sound to see how they operate. Now, Owen Sound does 7 police forces, so they're very experienced in what they're doing.
Nuttall says the change will not jeopardize the safety of Dryden. Coming up after the break, a family from Alberta can say the saying is true. Their cat did come back, just not the very next day. More details after the break. Well, here is a remarkable story. This past summer, an Alberta family on their way to southern Ontario lost their cat somewhere in Ignace. The family searched for hours and realized there was nothing more they could do. Now, 3 months later, a strange turn of events has left the owners overjoyed. Courtney Rutherford has that story.
This looks like your typical cat playing around. However, the story is anything but.
Back in July, Fester ran away from his owners near Ignace. The family was traveling from their hometown of Edmonton when he suddenly went missing. Months had passed and Fester was suddenly found by the Ignace animal rescue group called the Northern Critters in Need along the highway. He was beaten up, skinny, and scared. Pam Flory is one of the members of the group. She says once they noticed Fester was microchipped, they knew what had to happen next.
We put it on Kijiji. We just kept searching for anybody who lost his cat. We now know the cat's 12 years old. It's neutered. It's been chipped, so obviously somebody's family pet. We searched the phone number with reverse directory and found a different person, contacted him through Facebook, and he knew who the owner was.
When Flory called the family to tell them the good news, the owner couldn't stop crying. Fester will spend a little bit of time getting healthier and will be flown to his family in Edmonton. The rescue group is nonprofit and sells homemade dog bones to make money. It's situations like these that have Tanya Hazelar, a member of Critters in Need, feeling proud of their work.
It is the rescue at its finest, and what we do. We want a happy, healthy animal, and we didn't know what had happened to him. You know, he could have, jumped out of a trucker's vehicle. He could have been thrown away just because of his age. We didn't know what had happened, and they can't tell us. And that he was in such rough shape. It just makes us feel good that somebody on the other line of the phone is having a little cry that they're so happy that they're going to get their pet back.
As for Fester, he continues to get stronger each day. Anyone that is looking to donate can log on to Facebook and join the Northern Critters in Need Care page. Courtney Rutherford, TPT News.
That's all the time we have for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.